Since cosmetics and medications are heavily regulated, an estimated 26 million animals are used annually in the United States for cosmetic and scientific testing. While many supporters of animal testing believe that it's necessary for human benefits, others believe that it's inhumane as well as time-consuming and expensive form of testing, as many government research funds can be more effectively utilized by different methods. Those opposed to animal testing strongly support the use of alternative testing methods that now exist as a result of modern technology, such as in vitro testing, computer models, human volunteers, and epidemiological studies. These methods are noted as less expensive and faster than animal testing. In addition, studies show that 94% of medications that pass animal testing later fail during the stages of human testing.
Good afternoon, class. My name is Taylor, and I am representing Team 11. Today we will be discussing Case 10.3, which involves animal testing for cosmetics and medicine. While some of you may think that testing on animals is a recent idea, it actually goes back thousands of years. In fact, animal testing has been used as far back as the time of Aristotle in 384 BC. So practicing medical experiments on animals has a long history. It was not until the 17th century that people started to question the ethical dilemma of these experiments. Animal testing on drugs was not implemented until 1938, after more than 100 people were accidentally poisoned after a new drug was released without being tested on animals. Because of this incident, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act was passed requiring safety tests on animals before they could go to market. Now, some of you may be wondering why this topic is significant or why it is important. So this topic is very important to look at because it is an extremely controversial topic for many people. It is important to know exactly how and why animals are being tested for cosmetics and other medical procedures. Now, before we go any further, let me define some terms. Cosmetics is defined as a product applied to the body, especially the face, to improve its appearance. Inhumane is defined as without compassion for misery or suffering, cruel. PETA is an acronym for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And finally, FDA is an acronym for the Food and Drug Administration. Now I'll hand it off to Zach, who will give an overview of a description of our case study and the ethical issues and dilemmas presented therein.
Our team believes that there are a few ethical considerations that need to be considered in this case study. The study talks about animal testing, specifically in the medical and cosmetic industry. There are no specific companies identified in the case study that use animal testing. However, the text does mention cosmetic companies like Mary Kay and Avon, who have banned all forms of animal testing for their business. The case study simply asks the question of, is it ethical to test these medical and cosmetic products on animals? What seemed like an easy question for our group turned into something a little more difficult. However, we did come to the conclusion that animal testing for medical purposes is ethical, but only if it is the only way possible to help the human race. These days there are many other different kinds of tests that can be used to see how something will affect the human body, and many times tests on animals don't work the same way in humans. But as we've mentioned before, we know humans are more important than animals, and for that reason, if it is medically necessary to save human lives, then we believe it is a necessary thing. For cosmetic reasons, however, we believe that animal testing is unethical and should be banned in the United States, as it already has been in many other countries. Some of the barriers to acting ethically is that, for one, it is not illegal to test products on animals, so companies that get their moral codes from the law and not God might have a difficult time, especially if testing on rats will save their company millions, compared to them having to purchase all kinds of human simulators. This is a pretty widespread issue in the United States because, like mentioned before, we are one of the few developed countries that still practices testing on animals. There are multiple groups that protest this in the country, and it is a very common practice for companies. More than 100 million animals are used each year for testing, and with technology advancing so rapidly, it's probably time for us as humans to start looking for better ways to test our products.
What are your thoughts on the ethics of animal testing? Is this something a faithful stewardship would permit? This depends on the context. Biblical stewardship means being obedient in what is entrusted to mankind by his Creator. Genesis 1:26-28 states that God created mankind in his own image, and that mankind is to rule and subdue the earth. God values all of his creation, but not to the same extent. In this way, animals and the environment are to be cared for and protected, but with a priority in taking care of one another. What difference might one's basis or worldview make? A biocentric worldview says that all forms of life are equally valuable. For this reason, testing on animals for human needs or wants would be wrong because all life is equally valuable. Testing on animals for human needs demonstrates the belief that human life is of more value. An anthropocentric worldview says that humans are more valuable than all other life forms. If humans want or need a product, testing on animals is acceptable because humans are valued more than the life of animals. Is there a distinction between using animals for testing cosmetics versus testing for medical purposes? Yes. Although animals are cared for by God, Jesus emphasized humans' worth and value. In Matthew 6:26, Jesus said, "Look at the birds of the air. They do not worry, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow." In Matthew 10:31, Jesus said, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them is outside your Father's care. Don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows." For this reason, necessary medical and health purposes for animal testing are acceptable because it can save a life. If it is unnecessary to human life, regarding cosmetics, harmful testing at the expense of the animal should not be permissible. The FDA does not require or prohibit animal testing, but adheres to certain acts. When animal testing, the FDA stresses the use of the minimum number of animals with the most humane methods available. Consumers are therefore given the choice to choose the products that best cohere with their worldview.
Hello class, hope you have enjoyed the presentation thus far. We're going to transition into one of the theories behind this case, which is that of emotivism. Now, emotivism is the idea that whatever you feel is what's right for you. And so this theory is far more relevant for the secular point of view as opposed to the biblical standpoint. So let's look at this case from a secular standpoint. One of the major theories in the secular world is that of Darwinism. And Darwinism, as you all know, is this idea that humans have evolved from animals. So if you really flesh out that thinking, it would say that humans are of equal value as animals. Because humans came from animals, they are therefore of equal value. And maybe even animals are of more value because they came first. So, according to this case, if you're going to come at it from a secular perspective, you would do everything in your power to free these animals from the test that they're enduring. You know, if it's causing them harm, you want to provide well-being for these animals, especially because they're unable to defend themselves. So that's kind of the secular view. Now, if you come at it from a biblical perspective, you have to start in Genesis 1. And in Genesis 1, God creates man and woman, and he creates them in his image. And this means that they have intrinsic value. They are of far more value than animals. However, God says that man and women are supposed to have dominion over the earth. They're supposed to take care of the earth, and this includes the animals. They're supposed to look out for their well-being. They're not supposed to use that intrinsic value as a way to rule and domineer over these animals. So therefore, coming from a biblical perspective, these animals, we believe, should be freed from animal testing. It causes them harm, first of all. There is far better ways to test for cosmetics. You can use synthetic ways. And thirdly, it's cosmetics. It's not like we're testing on animals to cure cancer. We're merely trying to find more skin products when there's already hundreds available to the public.
And so there is continuity in these two viewpoints, even though one is secular and one is from the biblical perspective. I believe that biblically and secularly, they agree that animals should be freed from animal testing. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.